over there. Write your name, and later on, for the end of the evening, we'll draw a bingo. The winner gets a book. Walter's book. Signed one. So my name is Ali Mansour. I'm managing Rackspace sales in Israel. Actually, we just hired another person, but he's now in onboarding training in the UK. But by the end of the year, I believe we will have 5 Rackers based in Israel. So we see a lot of interest around OpenStack, and we are looking to address it with more people on the ground. Not take too much time about Rackspace, but I don't know who knows how much you know about Rackspace. Probably you are familiar with the fact that we are the founders of OpenStack together with NASA. We are running the largest OpenStack environment, which is our public cloud environment. But just to make things in order, what we do, how we do, what we do in Israel, which is very relevant. There's a lot of very exciting stuff that we do in Israel as well. Okay, few slides, really, very short about Rackspace. So, on top of being, in addition to being the founders of OpenStack, running the public cloud, which is based on OpenStack, but we are also the market leader in managed hosting. What we do for our customers, we manage environments. We manage VMware environment, we manage Microsoft environment, we manage the OpenStack environment, and this knowledge of managing environments and being knowledgeable in managing cloud environments also gave us the expansion of our services to also manage AWS and Azure environments. So actually we have a vast capabilities of operating environments for customers in our data centers or outside of our data centers. 10 data centers worldwide, supporting over 60% of the Fortune 100 customers, and one unique capabilities that we bring to the table is also ability to manage OpenStack environments outside of our data center. For example, later on I'll speak about Basic International, and they have an OpenStack environment in their data center while we are helping them manage it. So they don't need to hold the environment, they don't need to deal with how to architect it. This is our role, and they are dealing with what's come on top. So this actually shows that the variety of technologies that we support and can manage to our customers in our data centers or outside. And of course, the fanatical support, which what we stand behind to bring above and beyond the top level of support to our customers. OpenStack. So we are here to speak about OpenStack, how to be certified about to become a certified OpenStack engineer, how to deploy OpenStack with automation. So OpenStack is picking up, ready for production, and we offer it to our customers with a 4.9 SLA, which is quite unique in any data center. So it's picking up, whoever is here and is doing his steps towards OpenStack, it's the right thing to all of us. It's picking up in production, in enterprises, right thing to deal with. And the community is growing, the maturity of the product, of the open source is growing, the ability to deploy it in production and to relay your platforms on this is here. As you know, it's complex, very complex, and we help our customers make it simple with an SLA that we stand behind. Actually, the reason Walter and Matt are in Israel is because we are running this, we are supporting our customers not only in running environments, operating environments, but also in their journey to onboard to OpenStack. What are the right steps to adopt OpenStack, how to automate your environments, how to gain the knowledge. So this is the reason why Matt and Walter are here, supporting our customers to onboard to OpenStack in different ways. So around Something that is happening in the US and soon we'll also drill down to Israel is the OpenStack Innovation with partnership with Intel. So we have in the US innovation center around OpenStack, which is mainly focused around code contribution to make OpenStack ready for the enterprises. We are helping Intel engineers on board to become OpenStack developers. They contribute the code, we contribute it back to the upstream code, test it, and back to the community. Again, there are two environments of 1,000 nodes, physical nodes for OpenStack in this innovation center. So dealing with performance, dealing with scalability of OpenStack, this is what's the focus over there. And one thing that we are now in the process of doing in Israel is do an OpenStack center in Israel together with Intel with the same purposes. Of course, it's going to be in a smaller size compared to what we have in the US, but it's a good starting point to become to build an OpenStack center to companies who want to onboard to OpenStack and want to do their first step, and to vendors and companies who want to contribute to OpenStack or want to offer their products like security or storage, bring it into OpenStack and into the environment. Our customers, and this is just to show the proof of the maturity and the ability to run large-scale production environments over OpenStack. So to give you also the confidence, each one is coming from a different company. But Walmart, for example, Black Friday is running on OpenStack with support of Rackspace. Basic International, for example, they have their virtual Nest environment, which they are now looking to move to OpenStack with our support. Yeah, TD financial institutions with running under regulation, they all give the trust in OpenStack and look how to use it for their production users. Okay. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to. Yeah.
Well, what is the benefit of Intel partnership with Rackspace and innovation?
So Intel actually, they have I think 200 engineers that we train in order to become code contributors into OpenStack. So they are becoming a major code contributors, and they are also dealing with the infrastructure and the chips, making it more optimized towards running OpenStack. So they are dealing it from two angles, from the hardware perspective and from the code contribution perspective.
One of the things about OSIC, which is an innovation center, is the idea of the fact that most individuals who are developing code for OpenStack never had environments large enough to test it at scale. So the whole idea of having 1,000 nodes is so that you can reserve 30, 60 nodes to be able to actually do regression testing at scale versus running on your laptop or a little environment you have running. So it's really more around being able to test those changes at scale to enable more enterprises to adopt it.
I heard another point of view, like business point of view, that the big companies that run their own infrastructure, like Google and Facebook and such. So when they buy bulk of hardware, so they downside the prices very, very low. So Intel kind of gets less margin. So Intel wants to open up an infrastructure for other companies so they can gain more for their hardware.
They are doing a lot of investment in getting into to be part of the OpenStack.
Yeah, and this slide is more OpenStack focused, less trying to promote their hardware. They're trying to get more into the OpenStack realm and show how they can provide value. That's very interesting. And I'm sure they are suffering from all the things you expressed.
Okay. Matt.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Hi, everyone. How are you doing? Good. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about this certification test for OpenStack that just came out. So this is going to be called preparing for the certification or certified OpenStack Administrator exam. So just to show of hands, want to get an idea of how familiar you guys are with these things that I'm about to mention. How many of you currently use VMware? I know it's a kind of a general term, but how many people use like vSphere, Workstation? Okay, cool. Quite a few of you. Amazon Web Services? A couple people? Okay. How many of you use OpenStack currently? All right, so quite a few of you. How many people feel comfortable on the command line? All right, so you guys are geeks. How many people feel more comfortable using the GUI? The actual GUI, like hey, click, it's okay. I know, don't feel embarrassed. See, he likes it. It's okay, I like it. Okay, real quick about me. My name is Matt Dorn. I'm an OpenStack contributor and technical trainer. You can check me out on LinkedIn at Matthew Dorn. My GitHub is MA Dorn. On IRC, on Freenode server, I'm MA Dorn, and you can email me at any time, matt.dorn@rackspace.com. I'll answer any questions. Okay, so about this certified OpenStack Administrator exam. Now, when someone says they're getting paid money to work on OpenStack, it's like very general, right? It's like, what are they talking about? There could be like lots of different positions where you get paid to work with OpenStack. Let's think about one particular position where you get paid working with OpenStack. Imagine you're a developer and you're supposed to be developing the next killer app, the next Waze, the next Facebook, the next, something killer. Well, if your organization has OpenStack, you're going to quickly be able to get your application up and running on OpenStack. So I want to make this clear. You're a developer who's developing an application that's being put on OpenStack. All right, that's the first kind of role where you get paid to work with OpenStack. You're a developer, you get paid to write something that gets put on OpenStack. Another role would be a contributor to the OpenStack project. Now you can get paid lots of money to commit code to the OpenStack project. That means like a new feature, some really awesome code that will fix a bug. You get paid to do that. So that's the actual OpenStack project. Another job that you could have is, let's say, being an engineer behind the scenes with OpenStack. Like you just live in configuration files. You basically do deployments, engineering, scaling, architecture. You're like the DevOps person, right? And then how about this one? And this is the one that the exam is actually on, operating OpenStack. Imagine you're like the system administrator of OpenStack. This is exactly what you're going to learn later with Walter's book, where he talks about how to speed up creating users, make that process much more faster. This is what the exam is on. The exam is on the administration of OpenStack, creating users, creating networks, creating resources, helping out those developers. We're not assuming that the person actually operating the OpenStack cloud in this test is a developer. You're just someone who knows how to create VMs, you know how to create networks, create users, groups, things like that. So once you actually take the exam, you're going to notice that there's a series of questions or tasks, and you have to solve problems using the Horizon dashboard and command line. You can use either one you want. You can use command line or you can use Horizon dashboard, but the goal is accomplish the task at hand. It's about 45 questions. The environment is deployed with OpenStack Ansible. And if you're not familiar with this, you should check this out at github.com/OpenStack/OpenStack-Ansible, founded by Rackspace. You take the exam on your personal laptop. This is what's different about this exam. It's not like a traditional Red Hat exam, if you're familiar with that. You can take this anywhere. You can't take it at like a cafe or a coffee shop because there's people around. They'll see that you can be cheating. but you take it in a room at home or something like that, and you have to use Chrome or Chromium browser. You have to have reliable internet access and webcam and mic. So they're going to watch you while you're taking it, and they're going to listen to you. They're going to make sure you're not cheating, but you can take it anywhere. Also, I want to add, it's not on here, but you can also use one resource, and that's docs.openstack.org. Those are the actual docs from the community for OpenStack, docs.openstack.org. You can scan that as much as you want.
During the test?
During the test, yes. But you cannot go to some website that you just created for the answers or something, or Google. That won't work. But you can go to docs.openstack.org. This is what the test looks like. Right when the test starts, you have one side of Horizon dashboard and one side of terminal. The terminal is where you're like actually in the server, you're in the infrastructure. The Horizon dashboard is just like being in the Horizon dashboard as an operator. You have full admin access, so you have full superpowers, so to speak, in the whole environment. You can do no restrictions. And if it tells you to complete a task, you can do that task again on the dashboard via the GUI or via the CLI. You can do it however you want.
So you're saying that the task that they want us to complete, we can do it in either or platform?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So you don't make a choice at the beginning. Literally, you have both these options for every question. You get a question, and then you can use this and this or some combination of both. It doesn't matter. Just as long as you get the job done. So, what do you get when you take this thing? Other than, it's cool that you have it. You get a certification, okay? It's not really a big deal. And you get this little logo next to your name in the OpenStack community directory. And you get to brag to everybody that you're certified. But those are the two things you get. So the actual infrastructure, do you know you don't have to play around with services, you don't have to play around with containers, you don't have to play around with anything like that. But just showing you what's on that server, like what's actually running on that node that you are going to be logged into, are all these OpenStack services that I'm going to show you here. Now, first of all, I'm going to show you a service, and then I'm going to show you a daemon running underneath that service. So I want to make sure I'm clear what I'm talking about here. The service is just the name of the service. The daemon is the actual running program associated with that service. The running program, the thing that you can actually, if you're familiar with Linux, you can run PS, the PS command, the process status, and actually see the actual running program. So Keystone's on there. You guys know what the Keystone project is?
Authentication.
Yes, it's exactly right. It's authentication or identity. When you log into the dashboard with the username and password, that is Keystone. You're sending your username and password to Keystone. The daemon responsible for serving that up, for serving up that API or application programming interface is Apache 2. It's using Apache 2 as the web server to provide that API. We also have Glance. You guys know what Glance is? Images. Why do you need an image? There's no way to boot a virtual machine without an actual image of an operating system. This isn't like an ISO. You might be familiar with ISO, or some kind of installer where you have to click through it by hitting next. It's not like that. It's a hard drive on ice. It's a snapshot. When you boot that image, you have the option of logging in. You immediately see a screen to log in. The daemons associated with Glance are Glance API, which provides the API, and Glance Registry, which actually writes to the database. It writes all of the metadata associated with an image. The image can only be stored in one particular area. You choose, as the engineer, you choose if you want to keep it in perhaps object storage, or maybe you just want to have the image sitting on the local file system. We also have Cinder. You guys know what Cinder is? Cinder is block storage. I know this concept is kind of weird for some people, but the idea is that, think of a USB drive, right? Like a portable USB drive. like this one right here. It's kind of a cool one, it's a flat drive. So you take this drive, right, and you plug it into your virtual machine, or even if you plug it into an actual real physical machine. What happens if you're on Windows? A little balloon pops up, right, and it says you've entered the D drive. If you're on a virtual machine, it will say, you won't really say anything if you're on like a Linux box, right? You have to run fdisk-l, but you'll suddenly see you have maybe a /dev/VDC or something, or SVB. The point is that anything I write to this USB drive is written to this drive, right? So even if I plug this drive into my laptop and unplug my laptop or destroy it, the data's still here. That's what Cinder is. It's block storage. It's persistent. It stays on the actual drive. It's got 3 APIs. It's got Cinder API, or it's got 3 daemons: Cinder API, Cinder Volume, and Cinder Scheduler. We also have Nova. Yes.
Can Cinder present the drive outside the OpenStack, the machine?
No, it works only in OpenStack. Yeah, good question though. Good question.
That was changed in the last version, I think.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah, Cinder was doing out to be independent outside of OpenStack in order to storage, API, block storage, and
Okay.
The newest version?
what?
The newest version? It was
It was updated on Meetup, and it's supposed to be on YouTube. I don't think that all the work was done in time, but
Okay.
it was driven back out of the Keystone connection in order for it to be independent.
So you can use Cinder if you are.
If not currently, it is on the working process. We're using it.
Yeah.
We're investigating and investing in it. We didn't see the possibility to use Cinder as a way to work with VMware.
Oh, awesome. Very cool. Thank you for sharing that. I want to learn more about it too.
How to connect to it? iSCSI and iSCSI.
So we also have Nova. What's Nova? Compute, right? Nova is not a hypervisor, right? Right? You install Nova on physical nodes. It actually talks to what? The hypervisor, right? It talks to the hypervisor. It's just the code that talks to the hypervisor. It's not the actual hypervisor itself. This is where our VMs actually live, right? You have a whole bunch of services associated with Nova, Nova API. And again, the API is what you interact with first. Nova Scheduler, Nova Conductor, Nova Console Auth, Nova Compute, Nova no VNC Proxy. And then you have Neutron. You guys know about Neutron? It's the networking service, right? So this is the service that allows you to create a network. Why would you want to create a network? Yeah, you can't, yeah.
Split up your cloud.
Sure, exactly. Yeah, you want to divide it up so people can't see each other. If you want to get a VM, if you want someone to actually see that VM, like if you have a web server running on there, see that from somewhere else, right? Someone from the US to actually access that website, you got to have an external IP address, right? How are you going to get that? You got to have Neutron. You got Neutron server, Neutron plug-in Linux Bridge agent, Neutron DHCP agent, Neutron L3 agent. The L3 agent allows you to create routers. The Neutron metadata agent. And then we have Horizon. What's Horizon? That's the GUI, right? That's really awesome. You log in, it looks nice. You can click buttons to launch a VM, to create a volume. Really nice stuff. That's running with Apache 2, with the help of Apache 2. Then we have Swift. You know, Swift is object storage. This concept, sometimes people get a little confused about, but object storage is basically, this is very similar to if you're familiar with S3 in Amazon. It's cloudy storage. What I mean is it's not like a drive that you plug in, right? You send RESTful methods like get and put and post, and you interact with it. It's kind of like Dropbox, right? You're going to put objects in there. You're going to store things in there. Things that you want to archive, typically. All right? If you want to store lots of things, and it's very, very cheap. So what I mean by that is that if you were going to offer Swift to your users, if you're trying to make money on the cloud, okay, it's very cheap for you. You just use standard disks. Yeah, very, very standard hardware. It's scalable. And it's very nice. So you wouldn't put fast stuff on here, just stuff you want to kind of archive. But it has a ton of services, as you can see here. And then heat for orchestration. This is what allows us to do everything in one nice click. Go ahead and deploy an application, have multiple front ends, a database, everything deployed, all the work we put into our automation. That's heat. And it's got 3 primary services: Heat API, Heat Engine, Heat API, CFN, and that's a reference to Cloud Formation. A lot of this stuff is based off stuff that already existed in Amazon, right? So, as a rule of thumb, daemon communication, this is the kind of way to think about it with OpenStack if you're not familiar with this already. As a rule of thumb, these individual services, these daemons, I should say, when they want to communicate with each other, in other words, when Nova API wants to talk to Nova Scheduler, it talks to Nova Conductor, talks to Nova Console Auth, Nova Compute. When any of these want to talk to each other, they're going to use Rabbit, MQ, which is like a message bus.
Can you share this slide?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. If these all want to communicate with each other, they're going to use AMQP. Okay, they're going to use a message bus to communicate with each other. It's very important that we understand this, that just amongst the services themselves, they're all going to use Rabbit to communicate. These Neutron services here are going to use Rabbit. This is going to use Rabbit. These are going to use Rabbit. Glance out of the box doesn't use Rabbit. These two actually connect each other directly. It's not going to use Rabbit. But it's important that we know that the Heat API wants to talk to Heat CFN or this to this service, it's going to use Rabbit for that communication. With that in your mind, understand that in OpenStack, when an API wants to talk to another API, they talk via HTTP. Okay, they send each other RESTful requests and response. They follow the rules of the HTTP protocol. Okay, so can you see why Nova would want to talk to Glance in this situation, for example? I want to make sure we understand why these services would want to talk to each other. When you spin up a VM, Nova needs to be able to get the image, right? The operating system. So Nova is going to go out and make a call, right, to Glance. And another thing to keep in mind is that the services here have to follow the same rules of authentication as the users in my system. In my system, we're going to learn later, if we check it out later, that Keystone is the primary, deals with authentication. So you have to get a token to do anything in OpenStack. Same thing with these services. These services have to get tokens to interact with each other. Okay, so the 3 ways, do you guys know the 3 ways to interact with, things on the, in OpenStack? Like there's 3 primary ways. Do you know the 3 primary ways? We kind of already talked about it. Walter, you don't count. What do you?
GUI, API, and CLI.
Do you have prizes? What's the? Okay, you're exactly right. It's the Horizon dashboard, the command line interface, and the API. What does the Horizon dashboard and the CLI use behind the scenes?
API.
They all use the API. They all use the API. That's true. You could say another way. That's actually a good point. I never even thought about that. A 4th way to interact would be via heat. That's a good point. That's a good point. Okay, so Keystone. Just like Jimmy said up here, it handles authentication. It doesn't handle authorization. I want to make sure we understand the difference between the two. Authentication is simply just checking to make sure that you are who you say you are. And authentication is whether or not you're authorized to do something, right? Are you allowed to spin up a VM? Are you allowed to create a network? What are you allowed to do? The authorization is not kept inside of Keystone. What somebody can do or not do, the actual things they can, the privileges and the authorization, that's all kept in a policy file at each individual service. And it's called the policy.json file. And you can always find it. You go to GitHub, you go to github.com/OpenStack/ the name of the project. It's always in the Etsy the name of the service, and then policy.json. You can see all the rules, what that person can do or not do within that particular service. Quotas, okay? So in Keystone and on the exam, you're basically going to be required to adjust quotas. It's like the easiest thing to do ever, but for some reason the exam asks this question many, many times. It asks you to basically increase or decrease the number of things that you can actually create. And we're going to show a visual of that in a second. The OpenStack client here, in the exam, you will have to use the OpenStack client. There's some things that you can't do via the dashboard, and you'll have to use the client. And then creating domains, projects, groups, roles, and users, creating services and endpoints. And those are the primary things that we should know about. So obviously, when you look on the left on your exam, you see this thing where it's like log in with username and password. The exam will tell you what your username and password actually is, okay? And you're going to log into your dashboard here. And we're going to log in. And the first thing you see is the main page. And when you look at the main page, you'll see that you have some categories on the side. I just want to show you the relationship between the categories and the projects that are running behind the scenes. Here you have the instances hyperlink here. That hyperlink, if you click it, will take you to the ability to spin up VMs. That's Nova. You have volumes, that's Cinder. Images, that's Glance. Neutron, that's the network section is Neutron. This orchestration section is Heat. This is what Heat looks like kind of on the dashboard. Swift is the object store. And Keystone is the identity piece right here. So right when you log in, you'll notice that there's this concept of scope. What this is basically doing is getting you a scoped token from Keystone. When I say scoped, I just want you to think, when you hear scoped, associate it with a project. The reason why we think that, or the reason why that is because when you click this top part here, you have multiple projects. Think about projects as, for example, if you're running a private cloud, it's going to look just like this, right? You're going to have your accounting department in a project. You're going to have the human resources department in a project, information technology, marketing. They're all going to be in their own project. One project can't see the other's stuff unless a person belongs to both those projects. When you create something, you have to have a scope token. That token that you have, it can only be scoped to one project at a time. So in this case right here, I'm scoped to which project in this picture? Accounting. So anything that I do going forward, is going to be what? Owned by what? By the accounting, right? Everything is owned by accounting. If I upload an image, it's owned by accounting. If I create a network or subnet, it's owned by accounting. If I create a router, it's owned by accounting. Instances, volumes, everything is owned by accounting. When you go into the dashboard, you'll see there's a section where you can actually go and adjust quotas according to each project. Quotas are adjusted to each project. I mean, you can go back. Some of this stuff is really easy to figure out. You can imagine that if this is Keystone, you go here, you click on the project, and there's a adjust quota section, and you go in there, and you basically have the ability to say, oh, okay, I only want this project to be able to create a particular amount of networks, or routers, or instances. You might want to restrict the whole project from only being able to create 2. And of course, you have to be an admin to change quotas, right? And there's the screen right there to adjust quotas per project. So adjusting the accounting, you go here, and it might say, for example, on the exam as a task, please make sure that this particular project in accounting can do 20 volumes, can spin up 20 volumes instead of 10. And obviously you go in here, you click 20, and you click OK. Pretty straightforward, right? The project-based clients, just so you know, for many years, if you wanted to use OpenStack, you had to have the clients download it. If you wanted to use the CLI, that is. So you have all these different clients, and depending on which service you want to actually use, you would use one of these clients. They're all written in Python, they're open source, you can still get them here. But there's a newer project that's called OpenStack Client, and its mission statement is to provide a single command line interface for OpenStack services with a uniform command set and format. And what these are a bunch of projects, these clients, condensed into a wrapper called Python OpenStack Client, which enables you to run commands with just the word OpenStack before them, like OpenStack server create, OpenStack image upload. And the great thing about this is all you have to do is install this, and you get all these clients as well as the ability to just use the OpenStack command to do something. It just makes things a lot easier. So on the exam, just letting you know, I'm showing you how to install it here, but this is installed for you on the exam. So you're free to use this client if you want to, if you need to do a task via the CLI. These are installed as well. So the Keystone client, I can do Keystone user list, Glance image list, Neutron, all that good stuff. It's all going to work fine. So real quick, just to show you this, imagine you're using the CLI. If you've never used the OpenStack CLI before, that's fine. If you've never used a CLI and you were to install that Python OpenStack client on your machine and you didn't do anything else, and you typed OpenStack catalog list, actually, imagine you didn't install it yet. You haven't installed this thing at all on your machine. If you type in OpenStack catalog list, you're not going to, it's going to come back and say, I don't know what you're talking about. What's OpenStack? So you say sudo apt-get install Python OpenStack client. I want to make sure we understand too. You don't have to be SSH or inside of a server to run these commands. You can run these commands from a laptop on Tel Aviv Beach. You're connected to the Wi-Fi. You just have to, we're using the CLI, okay? So you say sudo apt-get install Python-OpenStack client. It installs the client for you. And then you say OpenStack catalog list. OpenStack catalog list. And it comes back with username. It says, I have no idea how to do this for you. Because you haven't given it any information, right? What you need to do is you need to pass it a username, a password, what's that? The project, yeah. That's going to give you a scope token. Exactly right. So as you can see here, you say OpenStack catalog list -- OS username, my user OS auth URL. Okay, and you have your endpoint here. What's the endpoint? That's where Keystone lives. So based off this, what port is Keystone listed on? Just by looking at this. Yeah, it listens on 5000. And then you say project name, my project, just like you mentioned, default OS password, identity API version 3, and guess what? I get back my catalog. And by the way, a catalog is just a list of every service in my environment, so it shows me what my cloud has to offer. If I'm using someone else's cloud, I can check out all these services they have installed, and then I choose which one I want to interact with. But just by looking at this, can you imagine if you want to run OpenStack commands, you have to do this every single time. That seems annoying, right? To have to put in this information every time. So to make it less annoying and to make it more convenient, what we can actually do is create what's called an OpenRC file. And on the exam, you will have to create, it ships with one file called OpenRC, but to switch projects, to switch different projects, what you're going to want to do is copy this file and fill it in with the information. I'll show you what I mean. If we look inside this file, you'll see you have the default authentication information in that file. But you can see here, if I source this file, and by the way, when you source the file, what happens? The variables that are set in that file get set in your bash session temporarily, right? If I wanted to scope myself to the accounting project or marketing project, what would I have to do here? Well, if I wanted to be marketing or project, I'd want to change that, right? It's probably marketing or accounting. I change it, then I source it, and then I run OpenStack catalog list, and now I'm asking for a catalog list on behalf of whatever project is inside that file. I want to make sure we understand that. Okay. So you can see here, if I change it to marketing inside of the file, and then I source it, who am I going to be now? I'm scoped to what? Marketing, yeah? Pretty straightforward, right? I say OpenStack token issue. That gives me a token if I wanted to see if I can get a token. And I look at the project ID, that's the project I'm scoped to, and the user ID. That's my username. That's the unique identifier for my username. So we go to Keystone, And what happens behind the scenes? It talks to Keystone, it sends your username and your password, because you notice that when I logged in there, I just put a username and password, nothing else. I get back an unscoped token. I then, Horizon, I don't have to do this, Horizon then sends the unscoped token back to Keystone along with the API request for all my projects, because I may belong to more than one department, right? I may belong to accounting and marketing.
So if you have a couple of projects, so there's a comment after each project, or like what's inside the RC file. So how does it look? Is there a semicolon?
You can only scope yourself to one project at a time, so you have to create multiple files. Yeah, you have to create multiple files. There is an alternate way with the OpenStack client to set different projects, but that's something else that you probably don't want to mess around with on the exam. But one at a time, yeah.
Project and tenant is the same thing?
Yes. Project, tenant, and account all mean the same thing in OpenStack. Project, tenant, and account all mean the same thing. Were there any other questions anyone had? Feel free to ask any questions you have. Anything at all? I'm just watching the line here. So I get an API request for projects. As you can see, I belong to all these projects here. I belong to all these projects. Whichever one that I select is the one I get scoped to.
Is there some kind of like a super project, like an admin project that can log in to see all the instances of all projects?
Yes, it's not a project that has that ability, but a role out of the box. A role. It's a special role called admin. A special role called admin. And if you apply that admin role to someone and you put them in a project, guess what? They'll be able to see everything across all projects. And you may be thinking, that's awful. I don't want that. See that. Well, that's why the community is very aware of that. And you have to create custom roles, right? So your admin users are project admin users and they can't see outside. That admin role is strictly used for the cloud. That's the person who is running the cloud, right?
The admin role is limited to domain, or it's across domains?
It's across domains. So generally, if anybody has that admin role, you have one admin role. If anybody has that, you're going to have, yeah. Authentication, not authorization. Keystone gives you a token and service catalog. Tenants, projects, and accounts all mean the same thing. And we can see here, just getting into how Keystone works, we have a project, biology, project 2, project 3. By the way, for years, this was the version 2 API. You hear a lot of people in the OpenStack community talk about version 2 API, Keystone Identity, or Keystone versus version 3. Version 2 worked like this. So basically, you had a user who has a role, right? And they scope themselves to biology, and they're the sysadmin in biology. Now, let me ask you, I think I mentioned it before. Where is what a system admin can do or not do? Where is that stored? Where is the authorization? Where's that?
It's a config on each service.
It's in each service. Yep, that's right. It's the JSON file in each service. Etsy, the name of the service, / policy.json. That's going to say what a sysadmin can do or not do. The policy.json files only ship with what an admin can do. Okay? They don't mention anything else, just the admin role. That's what gives the admin role that crazy privilege to see everything. So if I'm going to create a new role called sysadmin, I have to go to every single service, and create what a sysadmin can do or not do if I want to give that sysadmin special rights. And then in that case, I know it seems like a lot, but then you would use some sort of automation, maybe something in Ansible that Walter's going to talk about, to speed up that process for you so it goes to every single policy file, updates it, and makes that work a lot easier for you. We now, in version 3 of the API, have the concept of domains. the concept of domains. All domains are the fact that it's one level higher in isolation. So if you have a domain, for example, imagine a better analogy than this Texas Robotics Center thing is imagine like the company Walmart, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, right? What is Coca-Cola going to have inside here? Probably an accounting department, right? So they'll have an accounting department in a project, or they may have human resources in a project. They have their own projects, but guess what? The rule still applies. Tokens can only be scoped to projects. You can have a token that allows you to interact within the domain, but guess what? The reality is that anything that you create in terms of resources, you create users, you put them into domains, but anything that, if you want to spin up a VM, you want to spin up a image, if you want to create a network, a volume, you have to have a token scope to a project. You have to have a token scope to a project, okay? So this is just big picture to show you how it looks or how it works, and it's important that you understand this on the exam. If you say OpenStack domain list, to show the list of domains, there's one domain that ships with OpenStack. If you're using V3, you're going to see one domain there. Does anyone know the name of it? Default. That's right. Default. It looks just like that. I mean, it doesn't look like that. I mean, but you know, if you can visualize it. And then OpenStack project list. What is it saying here? It says, show me all the projects in my environment, specifically all the projects that are within default. How many projects do I have there? I have 2 projects. I have one called my project in this case and one called service. Then I say OpenStack user list -- project, my project. What is that saying right there? What is that saying? Show me all the users where? Yeah, show all the users in my project, and I got 2 users in there. Then OpenStack user list -- project service. Show me all the users inside the service project. And by the way, remember that diagram I showed you with the API calls, with one API talking to another API? Remember I told you that when APIs want to talk to each other, the users, they follow the same rules that users follow? Because they follow the same rules, the APIs themselves, we have to have a special project, typically we call it service, but we can call it whatever we want, that has users that we've created named after the service that we have installed. Because we have to go into the configuration file for each individual service and set the authentication information so that the service, before it can talk to anyone else, can get a token from Keystone. This is what allows that. This is what allows that service to get a token. In fact, we have a user in there. We put that in the configuration file. So if we were configuring this for Glance, then we would actually go into Etsy, glance-api.com, and update Glance username, Glance password, Glance project, and all that good stuff. We're saying OpenStack role list, show me all the roles, or show me the role for my user inside my project. That user just has a role called _member_, which means nothing. That's not defined anywhere in the policy.json file. If you give a user a name of a role that is not defined in the policy.json, by default, that user has a regular access within the project. That means they can they're stuck in that one project they're in. They can create things, everything's okay, but they can't see outside the project. We're saying, what is the role for my admin? It's the admin role and _member_. This is the person that has those privileges we just talked about, where they can see everything across all projects. OpenStack role list. This is saying, can you please show me the role for Neutron inside of the service project? It's going to be admin, because you always give the users inside here the admin role. And then OpenStack project create -- domain default my new project. What does this say? Create a new project inside the default domain. You guys ready to see it? Wow, there it is. Okay. Here's what a real cloud would look like. Here's what a real cloud would look like that you've customized. You got Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts. That's a donut place in the US. You can imagine you have here. Is there Dunkin' Donuts here in Israel?
Actually,
Is there Dunkin' Donuts? Oh,
They don't last.
okay, they don't last long?
No, I just think those.
Mr. Dunn.
So check this out. If I wanted to make money on the cloud, right? Then I want to sign. Starbucks signs an SOW. So who is it? The CEO of Starbucks? Let's imagine that I give him an account. I make him a domain admin. He starts making all these users inside of the Starbucks domain. He creates marketing department, finance department, human resources. Also Dunkin' Donuts, they have finance, human resources, marketing. These individual users right here, these domain admins, I had to create that role called domain admin. I had to create that role called project admin. I had to customize this whole thing. These users cannot leave their domain, but they can add users to the projects, and guess what? They can scope themselves, as long as they have a property called inherited, to any one of the projects within their domain. So in order for them to do anything, in terms of creating cool stuff in OpenStack, they have to be scoped to one of these projects. Any questions on the Keystone stuff? I'm going to finish up here, and I'm going to give you guys a link that you can go to get more information on the preparatory course that we have. In fact, you know what? I'm going to give you the link right now, and I'm going to, I think going over Keystone was kind of good to give you a feel for what was on that. Now, obviously, there's lots more stuff on the exam. If you want to know about it, come see me, but I also want to direct you to this link. If you can sign up, if you're interested in our course, it's an online course that you can take on the exam. It's right here. Go to coa.cloudtrain.me, sign up, put your name, your email. We'll send you the information on how to take the course. Okay, and it's from Rackspace.
What's the cost?
I don't have that information right now, but it's a great question.
It's the first.
Well, our course comes with a free voucher.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, but I know what you're saying. The cost of the actual test is, I think,
300.
300 bucks. 300 bucks.
I mean, I did the same thing. I signed up and
Hey, that's for that.
I don't know. I'll find out for you though. I'll find out. Yeah, I'll check it out. Okay, sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, and a few questions, and then we'll let Walter do his thing. Do you have a question?
Yeah. Kind of a shading question. If I'm a developer, so can I pass the test?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not anything about like writing code or design.
No writing code. Just operating, just being an administrator.
it's already built, right?
It's already built. Yeah, you don't have to deploy anything. You have to just create things within an already pre-configured environment. Cool. Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty basic. It's pretty basic.
All right.
Basic. Oh, I have a question. Nowadays, certifications expire.
Sure.
Will the COA expire? Will they have a expiration date? For instance, I've been in IT 15 years. The certifications I got way back then, now they expire.
That's
It's
good.
like now you have to take them in 3 years.
That's a great question. And what I'm doing is I'm just looking really quick to see on my certificate if it has an expiration date.
Yeah, because that pretty much sucks.
No, I don't mean Ansible.
Certified nowadays because
So I may be
3
interested.
years you're gonna pay more money.
Yeah, I know. I'll find out for you.
Yes.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, no problem.
Round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you.
Gives you an idea how much we should cover.
I know. It's a lot of stuff. We're back questions. Exactly.
If anybody hasn't yet, you can write your name down here and we'll
See if they are here. If they
What
should
about
come.
this about Walter's
Because
what?
these books aren't passed out.
Ansible.
Yes.
If they don't know the language, I'm never like.
Well, there's a few ways. Number one, I can send them to you. I can send you one because I like you. Number two, you can go to Amazon and order it, or you can go to Packet and order it.
They have a PDF.
Yes.
Well, if you have any more you want to sell.
It's on the way.
So
Because I actually signed up for the COA.
oh, okay. Well, if you come into Houston, you let me know. You can come get it and send it to my house. So feel free. Hopefully you'll win the raffle and
Hopefully I win that. I'm never in the lucky.
good luck.
If so, I would have been won the Powerball. It's never happened.
Good point. Yes. The break? I don't know. Everyone took it, so I guess 5 minutes.
You get it. It's almost 7:02. We can start already now. Just getting pizza.
What's that?
Pizza dinner, guys.
Yeah.
So have a seat. We'll continue.
Yeah,
Take a beer.
I promise it'll be quick. I just want to show some examples.
Yeah, that's the thing. We don't want to rush you.
Yeah,
No, you're not gonna rush me.
totally.
You're not rushing me. I feel I can talk to them while they're standing too. I don't know what that is.
All right, we'll just chip away at your time by standing around and talking a little bit. Just chipping away.
So,
Do you go through any basic Ansible, or is it mostly like sort of advanced already?
it's basic and advanced at the same time, in the sense that I'm not going to really give you an Ansible 101. I'm just going to show you some things that you can do with Ansible with OpenStack, and then I can encourage you to go to GitHub and go look at some of the code I have there that's from my book, or by my book, or with my book, and you'll get all of the code there as well.
Cool.
So there's a few options. So I'm just going to get started, and again, feel free to grab stuff. It's okay. It's getting late. I understand. I want you to benefit. So this is just some information about me. My name is Walter. I just changed roles. I'm now in marketing now. I'm still doing the same thing with Practice Private Cloud and OpenStack. I just write about it instead of actually having to sell it. So I don't have to sell cloud anymore, but I still have to write about it, and I'm still very much part of the user community of OpenStack. Okay? This is my information, my Twitter, my LinkedIn. My GitHub, I actually have some really cool OpenStack and Ansible stuff on there, and I have a blog as well where I do talk about OpenStack as well. Some fun things about me is that I'm a New Yorkson, which is a new state. It's a New Yorker that moved to Texas. So I just moved to Texas 8 months ago, but I natively am from New York. And these are just some of the other things that I feel good about. I love my motorcycle, so yeah.
About guns.
Yes, that too. But I don't. When I put that on a slide, people get nervous. So I don't generally put that on the slide. But we can talk about that. I have quite a few. So I'm not going to talk about the who, what, whens, and whys of OpenStack, because I'm assuming by now you guys got it. Matt kind of drove the point home, and actually Ellie drove the point home, that we are the co-founders of OpenStack with NASA. But the biggest thing that I find that I run into when I deal with customers is, so you fight with your leadership, you get your OpenStack cloud, you're happy with it, it's delivered, and then you turn and say, well, now what? Now what? Now what am I going to do with this cloud? You know, you have a lot of ideas, you know what you kind of want to do with it, but you're not sure how to go about it. And this is where leveraging things like Ansible and automation is what makes the difference of how your cloud experience is, right? So this guy, he lost the data center, and that can happen, right? So I love Gilbert, by the way. So you may say to yourself, well, you know, out of all the change management tools or automation tools or orchestration tools out there, you know, why do I feel so strong about Ansible? And you know, there's a lot of reasons behind it, and these are some of the obvious ones that we're going to kind of cover here. So, you know, why Ansible with OpenStack? One of the very first things that I realized when you're managing a cloud, or what you may realize when you go to manage a cloud, is a cloud is a dynamic environment, right? We're not talking about one node or 2 nodes or 5 nodes. We could be talking about 10, 100, 1,000 nodes that you have to manage. So the idea that the only thing you need to run Ansible or to have Ansible manage your environment is SSH and Python, that's actually pretty cool. You don't have to install any agents. You don't have to worry about deploying any additional code. All those machines have to be able to do is run SSH and Python, which is what all Linux machines run by default. And you can use Ansible to manage that device. And I thought that that was pretty cool. And with that being said, you can actually dynamically manage multiple types of machines. You can dynamically inventory and be able to span across multiple clouds as well as multiple containers inside the cloud. I'm going to show you some examples of that. Another thing that I think is really interesting with Ansible is that Ansible already has taken the time out and written int modules. And what those are just basically packaged up software that already can do stuff for you, right? So you can execute a task that calling a specific OpenStack module in Ansible and it will create a user, or it will spin up an instance, or it will create a network for you, right? So what Ansible does is cut down the amount of work that you have to do to write your automation code. And one thing that to keep in mind is that the modules have been updated with version 2 of Ansible, so there's some new OpenStack modules out there. So if you're familiar with the older version of Ansible, go check out version 2. There's some new stuff out there, and they do really nice things. The playbooks. So what playbooks are is basically the automation code in Ansible. They have some terms. One of the terms is playbooks, the other term is roles. They pretty much are the same, but it's more of a hierarchy, and we won't go into too much detail of that, but I can explain that later. With the playbooks, you can actually write code, automation code against the OpenStack APIs or the OpenStack CLI. So you know how Matt covered that there's a CLI, there's the APIs, and of course there's Horizon. You wouldn't want to write code against Horizon, that'd be pretty funny. But you would or can leverage the APIs directly, or if you don't like pain in your life, you can leverage the CLI, because CLI is actually, to me, a little bit easier to write automation code against. You'll see some of my examples around that. Some people judge me for that, but if you ever had to deal with an API making posts and get requests and then taking the responses and putting it back, it's not free. You don't want to do that. And then the last but not least, you can define roles to pull in unique variables. One thing you realize with an environment like a cloud, you are going to need variables. You're going to need to be able to dynamically change things. And the more variables you use, the less time you actually have to change your code, right? Because you don't want to have to keep going inside of a role and making a change, or going inside of a playbook and making a change. You want to be able to define variables at the beginning, and all you have to do is go into a variables file that's defined, make the changes there, run your code, and it'll keep going. So that's just something to keep in mind that I found very interesting about Ansible. So this is a visual around how I look at Ansible and how it fits into the OpenStack world. So you have very up top, we are, everyone in the room, consider yourself a cloud operator, yay. And what you will have then is a series of Ansible playbooks and roles. And those playbooks and roles can be created by our folks sitting off to the left here, which are DevOps folks, right? So you got to get your developers, your operation people to talk to each other. It actually makes life a lot easier to make automation code. And then from that point, you then have the capability of leveraging the OpenStack API or the OpenStack CLI to be able to manage your OpenStack environment, to do almost anything you can think of in your environment, you can do it through automation. And I've pretty much tried everything almost with Ansible, and yes, you can do it. Some training that I'm doing tomorrow, I built all the environments using Ansible. I've done migrations of clouds from one cloud to another with using Ansible playbooks. I can think of a lot of different scenarios. I use Ansible very much. If I could use Ansible to do things, like to get my children to do things at home, I would use Ansible. But I haven't figured that out yet. They don't understand when I execute codes. They don't understand.
Did you share all the playbooks for this or not?
What's that? Oh, show me.
No,
The children?
I asked if you share all the playbooks to manage the office.
Well, I'm working on that. I'm working on those. But fun fact, all the playbooks and roles that are actually in my book are actually on GitHub. So if you go github.com/ I think it's os-admin-ansible. Anyway, it's in the book. It's all there. I can send you the link directly to it, where all the automation code that I've created for the book is there. And of course, if you go to my GitHub, just my GitHub repository, wbentley15, you'll find some more there. You may even find some heat stuff there too, so be careful, don't burn yourself. And then off to the side, you have cloud consumers, which are your users. They are using the cloud. They don't even know about all the hard work that you've done and all the automation code you've written. But as long as they're happy, that's all that matters, right? So no more slides. We're going to do now some live demos, some live interactions. I'm going to step through 3 different scenarios, and these are just 3 that I picked. They actually are relevant to me. It may be relevant to you, but these are things I actually experienced at companies I've worked for. So the very first one, when the situation is, so remember, you are an admin. So remember, when you're looking at the scenario, you are the admin. So the marketing department, who I'm now part of, so when I wrote these slides, I wasn't, so I used to judge the marketing department. But they basically purchased an unbranded website for some special campaign, and they want to be able to sell whatever product your company has, right? And the biggest part of it all is that they did not tell IT. They went out and did it on their own because that's what marketing departments do. So then the next step is to add insult to injury. They hired 20 developers and contractors to add some branding and functionality to that website. Those developers need a space to work. They need resources. They need to be able to spin up instances so they can test out this website and brand it. And guess what? The only person who has those resources are you and your cloud. So they come to you and they say, I have 20 users. I need you to create 20 users, 20 projects, assign them the roles. And yes, I need that right now. Now, could you go into Horizon and click about 100 times and create users and projects and assign roles? Absolutely. Could you use the CLI and do about 100 commands to do that? Absolutely. But the part that you kind of keep remembering is that those users have to have passwords that meet a certain spec, right? So now you're doing password gen and you're copying and pasting, and it turns into a mess. It creates a bigger opportunity for you to make mistakes. So what is the wise thing you can try to do? Why not automate it? So we're going to show you an example here, and I'm going to make this screen a lot bigger since it's very small. Almost. I've fallen off the screen. I don't even know where the prompt is anymore. Oh, wow, it really did go off the screen. It won't come back either.
Anyways.
There it is. That's not nice. What is this thing doing to me? Oh, you know what it was? I was connected to a machine. Yeah, it didn't like that I lost the connection. I have to connect. Sorry, I was more prepared, but it kicked me off the network, so there we are. So what I'm connecting to, and this is all very relevant based off of what Matt kind of presented, is I connected to an all-in-one running OpenStack Ansible, right? So this is all-in-one running OpenStack Ansible, running all the OpenStack services, but just on one virtual machine. This is actually running on our Rackspace public cloud. So I'm doing like quadruple O. So OpenStack on top of OpenStack on top of OpenStack. Yeah, it's fun stuff.
Inception.
Yeah, don't do this at home. I would never recommend you do this. And what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to just pop into a directory here that I've already pulled my Ansible playbooks down from GitHub already. And I really don't have the time to kind of step you through the actual playbooks in detail. What I will show you at least is where they are, and you can go in and kind of take a look in your spare time. But this is the URL to where the Ansible playbooks are that are coming from my book. I don't know if you can see that. You can't see it. That's the name of the repository, right? It's just github.com/ in that name. os.admin-with-Ansible. And
Be on the video. Share the video. Hopefully it'll catch that.
Okay. Well, yeah, it got bigger there, so yeah, it's there. But this is where you'll find the playbooks and roles. Again, I'm not going to go into the details of what they do, but we'll actually see the output of them when we execute them. So Ansible is a command line tool, right? So those of you who raised your hand and said you like the command line, you're in luck. Those of you who like to use Horizon, you gotta have to get out of that. You gotta have to move on, and you're gonna have to get used to things. So imagine that I'm gonna execute this playbook here, and what this playbook is gonna do behind the scenes is that task that we were asked to do. So the very first step you'll notice before it scrolls away is that I installed a random password generator, right? Now why did I do that? Well, remember, I gotta create users, it means I gotta give them some passwords. So what I did is I installed a tool to be able to do that for me. I generated those passwords. I'm creating those users. Oh yeah, right now while that's doing it, I'm having coffee, reading a book, talking to my wife. Oh, it's still running. All right, I'll take a quick walk, go get some snacks. Yeah, still going. So you can do multiple things while this is running. Now, instead of you having to be the guy doing this is doing it for you. It's almost done. It's actually running slow. I'm on some slow Wi-Fi here, so it's coming. It's coming. What it did is it created our users up here. It gave it dynamic passwords. It created our environments, which is our tenants or projects, whichever name you like the best. And now it's assigning the role to those users within those tenants or projects. And at the very end, the last step is that I had an output information about the users in a format that I can copy and paste and send to that marketing manager. So as you can see here, it says it very clearly, the username, the password, the name of the project, user such and such was added to that project with the signed password of that, right? So you can literally copy and paste this, send it to the marketing person and say, okay, I'm done. Have fun. Cool? All right. Let's go on to the next scenario. So the next scenario is just a continuation of where we were before. And basically in this situation, you realize that when you gave those contractors an environment, you didn't set your quotas right. And it basically turns your private cloud into a public cloud. They consumed all your resources. It's a nightmare, right? So you realize you need to go in there and you need to restrict those guys down so that they're not using up all of your resources. Again, in this situation, you have to realize that you're now going to go in and try and manage each of those projects and change their quotas. Again, could you do this by hand? Absolutely. Could you do it by CLI? Absolutely. Well, why would you? Because the chances are you're going to have to adjust quotas on every project you create, every project you create in your cloud. This is a practice of something that you're going to do. So this is another situation where I said, you know what? This feels like something that I should automate, right? It feels that way. It feels right. So the next playbook we're going to execute here is called quota update. And what that guy is going to do is it's going to go in and update those projects that I needed to make adjustments to. Some of them is going to set to 20 vCPU that they can only use only. The others they're going to set to 30 vCPU and also change the amount of instances. So you can see right here on the output. And this is one thing I love about Ansible is that when you run your playbooks, it actually shows you what it's doing and what it changed. And with Ansible, you can have it right here. You can have it right to a log that's saved in var log or wherever you want to put it. You can dump it wherever, right? Its default is to write it out to the screen. So if you wanted to log to a file, you actually have to go into the configuration file. So it's ansible.config and actually make that change. But that's just something to keep in mind. But this is it, right? So I'm not going to pop into these tenants. Just take me for my word that it did it. But this is just another very quick and easy example of how you can adjust a quota. Look, again, it took a matter of seconds, right? And you can change. And one thing, and I'll show you the part that's cool about this is that within that role called adjust quotas, and I'm actually going to pop into the directory here, there's a directory called tasks and vars. So tasks is where the file that is going to run the actual tasks that I have assigned to it, right? So this is the actual code behind what I just ran. Right, again, and we're not going to delve too deep into that. But if we go back up one directory and we go look at the directory called vars, inside of here is another file. And this is basically where I'm defining those variables that I'm going to pass to that automation code. So anytime I need to run this for a different customer, for different projects or things, I just need to go into this file, change these variables, run it again. And that's basically how you keep iterating through it. I don't have to go in and change any of that other code. I don't have to go in and do anything else other than making changes to this variables file. So that's how you want to design your code to leverage variables file as much as you possibly can. All right, last scenario. Even though I have plenty more, but I'm going to keep it brief so that I think I smoke pizza. Oh, he's eating the pizza. He's violating. So last scenario. So time has passed, and as what always happens, the marketing department realized that they hired a bunch of very special people and they had to fire them. They were no good. They just made a mess of things. They didn't get accomplished what they wanted to do. So now you're being tasked with, as the cloud operator, you need to go in and destroy their environments. But what is one little special thing in there is they said, well, before you destroy all the environments, I want you to take a snapshot of a few of the instances in one of the environments at least, just in case one of the developers actually did some work that we wanted to keep for later, right? So something like this, so think about what this involves. This involves going into each of the projects, deleting them, going into each of the users, deleting them, going into one of the projects, running manual snapshots of each of the instances. It could be 10 instances, it could be 100 instances in there, right? Again, could you do it through the GUI? Absolutely. Could you do it through the CLI? Absolutely. Well, why would you? Because you're going to do this task again. You're going to delete environments that you create. That's just the reality of cloud. It's meant to be disposable resources. So what we did here is I approached this one a little bit differently, and I'll tell you why. So, and I'll, pretty much, what's my commands? See, I got a little cheat sheet. You see it on my cheat sheet stuff behind the scenes. There we go. So for this particular task, when it came down to deleting things, I don't know how you feel, but as a, an administrator, I don't like to write code that will delete a bunch of things at one time. It just doesn't feel right, right? So imagine you write some automation code that is going to go through and delete a whole bunch of projects, and you execute that sucker by mistake. Those things are gone. They're not coming back, right? So what I did is I wrote this Ansible playbook in a way that I have to pass additional argument variables to the command line for it to actually execute successfully. So basically I'm saying I'm consciously typing in that I want to delete this project at this time, and then it will execute. So what I'm going to do, so what I have to do is I actually have to execute however many number of commands based off however environments I'm going to delete. So we're going to delete 20 environments, so I'm going to paste 20 commands in here. The good thing about this is that they will actually run as you delete them. So what you'll see here is that the extra variables that the extra variables that I passed is the tenant name and the user ID. And I did that consciously. Did I have to code it that way? No. Could I have coded it where I can just execute it and it would have did it? Absolutely. But to me, it just did not feel like the right thing to do. So what it's doing right here, it's going through, it's determining the tenant ID, because when you do certain things, you need a tenant ID. It's then taking a snapshot of the instances running in there. It's going by really fast. Deletes the instance, deletes the environment, deletes the users, and then it moves on to the next one. And because it's 20 in here, this is going to run for, well, what number we're up to? We're only up to 7. So I got a few more minutes to talk while this thing finishes up.
Yeah, you have a question?
Yes, I'll take questions. Yes.
By backup,
Yes.
what kind of backup is it? Where does it put the snapshots? Where is it?
That is a very good question, sir. So within OpenStack, when you take a snapshot of an instance, it treats that snapshot like an image. So what it does is it actually, so Glance is actually now manages that snapshot once you take that snapshot. So what will happen is, and I'm hoping that everything went right, because I did make some last minute code changes because I found a typo in my own code, that when we log into Horizon of this cloud, you'll see that under Glance, there will be a new image that's based off the name of a snapshot of an instance. And I just realized something. I didn't spin up an instance, so it's not going to show us any snapshot. I just realized that. I missed that step in my whole demo. So, but that's where we're actually have stored that snapshot. But I didn't actually spin up an instance, so I'm sorry. I apologize for that. But let's see. Any more questions? We're on 17. We're close. We're close. Almost there. So what I'll do is I'll log in the meantime. Again, this is very much like what Matt demoed, but mine is live. I get extra points for that, right? No? All right. You guys are hard. You guys are tough. And last but not least is number 20. So what I want to basically just show you in here is that the idea that if we go look under identity, we realize that all the projects that we created are now all gone. All the users that we created are now all gone. And what I would have been able to show you is that under images, you would have seen a snapshot of an instance stored here as an image. And that's what happens to a snapshot. It actually goes as an image. But that's pretty much what I wanted to show you guys. Again, I know that the pizza is there. It smells great. All I want to say is that, I thank you for your time. If you have any questions about Ansible, you have any questions about OpenStack, call Matt. No, just kidding. You can call me. You can email me. That's my Twitter handle. And yeah, thank you for your time again.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, thanks everybody for coming. If you have any more follow-up, you could probably, message Walter on Twitter or something.
Twitter is what I check the most.
And Ellie's there if you have any questions about what Rackspace is doing here. If you want to talk about your company, getting some training or anything like that, Ellie's the guy to talk to. So thank you all for coming, and feel free to chow down the pizza.